"If you don't want the nursing home, get a job," said my son. Shortly after, I heard a car horn. His words still echoed in the room when I heard the car horn outside, twice, short, sharp. I looked out the kitchen window, unhurried. Inside, my hands were shaking. On the outside, I kept stirring the spoon in my coffee as if the world still made sense. He didn't know it, but that sentence had been the final straw. If you don't want to go to a nursing home, get a job. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a sentence. Michael spoke in that calm, almost gentle voice, as if he were offering me a gift, not an ultimatum. But I read it in his eyes. He had decided. I was a burden, a problem that needed to be managed. His wife said nothing. She just sat there with that controlled little smile, crossing her arms like someone watching a house being cleaned out. The cup cracked in my hand. The coffee grows cold. A lump forms in my throat. In the corner of the living room, my grandchildren play, uncomprehending. Olivia stares at me with wide eyes. Leo, the little one, holds my arm tightly. "Are you leaving, Grandma?" I swallowed hard. I looked at the clock. Time seemed stuck, suffocating the entire house. And then, the horn sounded again. This time, longer, deeper. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, because I knew who was on the other side of that door. And he also knew that I had nothing left to lose. Just a packed suitcase, an entire past lodged in my chest, and a name that was still only mine. Eleanor, the woman they thought they could erase in silence, but who was about to be remembered in the most unexpected way. If you've ever felt the weight of being invisible, this channel is your refuge. Here, every story reveals truths the world tries to hide. My name is Eleanor, 69 years old, a retired literature teacher, a widow for 6 years. For 30 years, I shaped minds. I taught Faulkner, Dickinson, Frost, but nothing prepared me for the pain of being forgotten by the one who should remember most. When my husband died, it was my son who made the invitation. "Come live with us, Mom. It'll be good for everyone." And I went. Not out of need. I had my pension, my old apartment in Beacon Hill, but I accepted. I thought it was love, and maybe it was. In the beginning, their house was full of good noises. Children's laughter, running feet, the smell of apple pie in the oven. I felt useful. I helped with the backpacks, the homework, the Sunday roast. Sarah smiled. Michael said he didn't know what they'd do without me, but that faded. Over time, I became a shadow, invisible at lunch, discreet in the hallways, a functional piece in the grand theater of the house. Sarah, my daughter-in-law, started to update everything. "These old-fashioned ways just don't work anymore, Eleanor." She reorganized the kids' schedules, cut out the cakes I baked, removed my picture frames from the mantelpiece. Michael, my son, didn't notice, or pretended not to. He always feared confrontation. He preferred the comfort of omission. And me? I stayed silent. I pretended not to hear. I swallowed each small exclusion without a word. But at night, in my cramped room, I relived each memory like someone stroking a rare object. The first time Michael said, "Mommy," the morning he got into college, the wedding, the birth of Olivia. Each memory was a thread that held me to the world, until one day I realized there were no more threads, just a growing emptiness, and a question that hammered in my chest, quietly like a threat. Does he still love me, or does he just tolerate me? I didn't want the answer, but I knew it was coming, and when it came, it would change everything. I never wanted luxury. I never desired public recognition, parties in my honor, or a plaque on the wall. My desire was simple. I wanted to be seen, that's all. To be seen as someone who exists, not as a free employee, not as an emotional obligation. For years, I lived believing that love was enough, that those who truly love, see you, care for you, thank you. But time, that relentless teacher, taught me something else. Some people get so used to receiving that they forget where it came from, and that's how they forgot me. Michael, my son, was everything to me. Since he was little, I cared for him with a devotion that was perhaps too blind. I gave up vacations, new shoes, retirement plans. I put his dreams before my own. I don't regret it. but it hurt. And today, it hurts even more to realize he never understood the scale of it. My desire then began to change over time. At first, I just wanted to hear a thank you. One evening, a simple dinner where he would say, "Mom, sit down. Tonight's on me." But that never came. Then, I wished for the children to grow up remembering me as a present grandmother. But now, even that seemed to be slipping through my fingers. The stories I told, replaced by tablets, the quilts I sewed, considered outdated, the old family recipes, full of allergens, too fatty, inconvenient. What was left of me then? I was becoming an echo. That woman who read poetry on the subway, who knew the verses of Frost by heart, was now just the grandma who needs supervision. And still, I carried on. Why? Because deep down, I still had hope. Hope that one day, Michael would look at me not as a cost, but as a root. That Sarah, perhaps, would acknowledge my effort. But their every gesture was like a new nail in my silence, until the desire changed. It stopped being a desire for recognition and became a desire for dignity, for freedom. I began to dream, in silence, of something I never confessed to anyone. I dreamed of having my own little corner, a place where I could hang my old paintings, make my coffee my way, listen to my music without headphones, a corner just for me, where I wouldn't have to walk on eggshells, where I wouldn't be remembered as a burden, where I wouldn't have to ask for permission to exist. It seems small, doesn't it? But for someone who has spent a lifetime molding herself to others, it is everything. And when I heard that sentence from Michael, "If you don't want to go to a nursing home, get a job," I realized my desire had finally found a decision. I didn't want a job. I wanted respect. And if for that, I had to walk out the door without looking back, so be it. Because a woman alone with her dignity is worth more than one surrounded by people who treat her as if she's invisible. It was a Monday. One of those where the sky dawns gray and the kettle whistles on its own, as if it already knows something is about to shift. I had spent the weekend with the children. Sarah had traveled to visit her parents and Michael stayed home to work. It was me who made breakfast, lunch, who bathed little Leo after a fall in the backyard. I was a real grandmother again, whole, and that, however brief, brought me peace. That Monday, I sat on the living room sofa with an envelope in my hands. It was an old document, kept in the back of my drawer. I didn't even remember what it was, but something made me grab it. Before I could open it, Michael came down the stairs. He wore a suit jacket, a hurried pace, the smell of expensive cologne. "Mom, I need to talk to you before I leave." I looked up, not imagining what was coming. He sat in the armchair, crossing his legs hastily. "We've been talking a lot at home, and we think maybe you should consider alternatives." "What kind of alternatives?" I asked, though I already knew. He took a deep breath. "A residential facility, not a nursing home. Something modern, with assistants, leisure activities, doctors nearby." I couldn't answer. I looked around the room, as if searching for a hidden camera. "Are you really saying this to me?" He didn't answer. Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs, arms crossed, gaze firm. "Either that, or a job. Something to keep you busy. Because staying here all day, just taking care of the house, it's not sustainable anymore, Eleanor." I stood motionless, as if time had frozen around me. The envelope fell from my lap, sliding onto the floor. "A job," I repeated, my voice a whisper. "You're still capable," Michael said, trying to sound encouraging. "You could tutor, maybe sell something online? I don't know. In other words, if I don't contribute financially, I no longer have a place here?" "That's not it." He tried to backpedal. "But things are getting tight, and you need to find a new function," Sarah completed. New function. As if I were a useless appliance. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just stood up. I picked up the envelope from the floor and went upstairs in silence. In my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and, with trembling hands, opened what had until then been just a forgotten piece of paper. It was a letter, handwritten, on firm, yellowed paper. A letter from Claire, my former student, a lawyer, successful. That quiet girl from the back row who once told me she only stayed in school because I made her believe she was capable. In the letter, she said, "Dear Eleanor, if you are reading this, It is because the time has finally come to use what I left for you. I owe you a debt that no money can ever repay, but I left what I could. The apartment on Newbury Street is yours. It's in my will. It's not large, but it's yours. Eternal gratitude. Claire. The words blurred before my eyes. An apartment? Mine? I closed my eyes. Downstairs, the sound of the blender. In my mind, a much louder sound. My own voice, for the first time in years, wanting to come out. I went downstairs slowly. Michael had already left. Sarah was in the kitchen, washing dishes. She looked at me with one of those polite smiles. Is everything all right? I nodded. Perfectly. And in that instant, everything changed. Not on the outside, but inside me. Something rose up. I was no longer a weight. I was not a nuisance. I was not a useless woman who needed to find a function. I was the owner of a piece of ground, the owner of my story, and now the owner of my decision as well. The question was no longer whether I should leave. The question was, when? The next day, I sat at the table for breakfast as always. The routine continued. The milk heating up, the smell of toast. Olivia was drawing at the end of the table. Leo was still yawning with his hair all messy. The scene looked normal, familiar, almost beautiful. Until Sarah appeared with a brochure in her hands. Eleanor, this is the brochure for that place I mentioned. She placed it right in front of me, as if serving dessert. Place? I asked. She smiled, the smile of someone who thinks they are doing you a favor. The residential facility, remember? The one with activities for seniors, with physical therapy, music, gardening. Michael walked in at that moment, adjusting his tie. I thought it would be good for you to look at the options calmly, he said, avoiding my gaze. Since you don't have any defined occupation. Silence. The word occupation hung in the air like thick smoke. I looked at the brochure. Happy photos, people smiling, painting in a group, playing dominoes in the sun. All very clean, very tidy, very impersonal. Have you already visited this place? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, it's excellent. It even has a mini cinema, a meditation room. A meditation room? I repeated, almost laughing. Sarah ignored my tone. You'd have a routine there, and professionals prepared for anything. Here at home, we can't give you all the attention you need. Olivia looked up from her drawing, confused. Is Grandma moving? Sarah bent down to her, stroking her hair. Grandma is going to see a new, beautiful place where she'll make new friends. My stomach turned. Michael sat down in front of me. We've thought about it a lot, Mom. It wasn't easy for me, but we've reached a point where we can't do it anymore. I swallowed hard. You can't do it anymore? You quit your job, and we can't support everything on our own. Support? I whispered. He nodded. Sarah is paying for the kids' classes. I'm handling the house bills. And now, with you here, not working, I wash, I cook, I take care of the children, I organize the house, I started to say, but he interrupted me. We didn't ask for that. You do it because you want to. The words cut, sharp, precise, like a keen knife. And, sorry to be blunt, but being at home all day, taking care of things, is not the same as contributing. Sarah added quietly, it's not productive. Olivia looked from one to the other, her eyes already welling up. Leo was playing, understanding nothing, but the mood had already shifted. So, I'm a burden? I asked. No one answered. Michael looked away at his cup. Sarah fiddled with her phone. The scene continued as if nothing had been said. I got up from my chair. My legs wobbled, but I stood firm. I went to the window. The sky was clear, one of those days when the sun gives no warmth. I walked back to the table slowly. I picked up the brochure. I studied each laminated image of meaningless smiles. I put it back down. Have you already made this decision, or are you consulting me? Michael shrugged. It depends on you. If you want to visit, we'll schedule it for this week. And if I don't want to, do you have another alternative? I was silent. For a moment, I only heard the sound of the kitchen clock. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Because honestly, Mom, I can't do this anymore. We have our projects. We're trying to get ahead in life, and having you here is holding us back. The word hurt more than any slap. holding us back. Me, who carried this man for 9 months, who sold a wedding ring to pay for a school uniform, who slept on a hospital bench when he had asthma, who gave up everything to raise him alone after his father died. Me now was an obstacle, an item over budget. "So this is it," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "A whole life, and now I'm a line in your monthly expenses." Michael rubbed his face, exhausted. "Don't talk like that, Mom. It's just reality." Sarah said in a sweet tone, "We just want what's best for you. You'll be well cared for there. Like a plant, right? Water, sun, and silence." She forced a smile. "You're being dramatic." Olivia was crying softly. I went to her, knelt, and wiped her tears with my fingers. "It's okay, my love. Grandma will always love you, wherever she is." She hugged me tightly. Michael cleared his throat. "I have to go. Think about it, okay? Let me know." He picked up his briefcase, the car keys, and left without looking back. Sarah collected the dishes. I went upstairs slowly, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely alone. Not for being in an empty room, but because, right there, I realized I was no longer part of that house. I was just a piece they were trying to move carefully, so as not to seem too cruel. I closed the bedroom door gently. I didn't even need to lock it. I knew no one would try to come in. By now, I was a vase, an old ornament, something you respect from a distance, but no one touches anymore. I slowly sat down on the edge of the bed and stayed there, my hands in my lap, my back hunched, my chest full of shards. For a few minutes, I did nothing. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't think, I just existed. To exist when you are ignored hurts more than any absence. On the nightstand, a picture frame. Me and Michael at his graduation. My face lit up with pride. His, a nervous, crooked smile. I stared at that image as if I were looking at a stranger. Where did that boy go? The one who would wake me up in the middle of the night, afraid of thunder. Who slept clutching the hem of my shirt when he had a fever. Who promised to take care of me when he grew up. That boy was gone, and in his place was a man who saw me as a problem. "It's not productive." That phrase echoed in my head, as if my value was in hours worked, in paid bills, in household spreadsheets, as if the act of loving had expired because it no longer came with an income. I got up slowly and went to the wardrobe. I opened the door. The clothes hanging, lined up, organized. Some I didn't even wear anymore. I took a blouse I had sewn by hand, blue, with small golden buttons. I placed it on the bed. Then I sat down again. And finally, I cried. Not a loud, desperate cry. I cried like someone unblocking an old drain, slowly, with a contained sound. Each tear was a memory, each sigh a small surrender I had made without realizing. I remembered the sleepless nights, the children's parties I prepared alone, the school meetings where I was the only one present, the times I gave up buying something for myself to buy it for Michael, the extra hours at school to pay for his field trip. All of that was real. But now, faced with that proposal, it seemed to have turned to dust. They didn't remember. Or worse, they remembered, and they didn't care. I went to the desk and opened the drawer where I kept Claire's letter. I read each line more carefully now. "You taught me not to accept being treated as less, to never forget who I was, even when no one else remembered." The letter had been written years ago, but it felt like it was written yesterday. There, on that yellowed paper, was more recognition than in the entire house, more respect than my own son had been able to give me. I adjusted my glasses. I took a deep breath, and I felt something strange. It wasn't just sadness. It was something moving beneath the pain, like a muscle waking up after being paralyzed for a long time. It was anger, not the anger that destroys, the anger that lifts you up, the kind that starts small, like a discomfort, and grows, taking shape, name, and direction. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to ask to stay. They had already decided. The only thing left was what I would do with it. I went to the mirror. I looked at my face, the wrinkles, the expression lines, the tired eyes, but alive. More alive than ever. I was still here. I was still Eleanor. The woman who stood in line at the clinic at 4 in the morning with her son in her arms, who learned to cook with what she had, who confronted the principal when Michael was bullied, who held her husband's hand until his last breath. I was that woman, and she would not be pushed into a corner like an old piece of furniture. I took 2 steps to the suitcase, the old one, made of wine-colored fabric that I kept in the back of the closet. I opened it slowly. I started putting clothes in, just a few, the ones that made me feel good. A floral dress, a beige coat, a pair of slippers. I also took the book of poems I got for my 50th birthday, and the picture of the children, not out of attachment, but because the love I feel for them is mine, and no one is going to take that away from me. I looked around. The room seemed smaller, emptier, or maybe I had grown bigger. I left the room. I went to the kitchen. The house was silent. I took my favorite mug. I poured myself some tea, and I sat on the porch. The sun was beginning to set. The golden light hit the ceramic tiles and made everything seem calmer. There, in that silence, I made a decision. I wasn't going to explain myself or give any explanations. They had made their choice. Now, it was my turn, and this time, I was going to choose for myself. Because before being a mother, a grandmother, a resident of their house, I was someone who deserved to exist whole. The next day, I woke up before the sun. The sky was still dark, and the house was silent. I got out of bed with a different kind of firmness. It wasn't haste, it was precision. I took a shower, put on a blouse I rarely wore, that light blue one with round buttons. I always saved it for some important occasion. I thought that morning deserved it. I took my purse, Claire's letter folded carefully, and left without making a sound. The gate creaked softly, almost like an accomplice. I called a car and got out at the address printed at the bottom of the letter. The law firm. Modest, discreet, but well located. At the reception, a young woman greeted me with a kind smile. "Mrs. Eleanor, Mr. Andre is waiting for you." Andre was Claire's partner. Young, but with eyes that had already seen a lot. "You were too important to Claire," he said as soon as he saw me. "She spoke of you as one speaks of a lighthouse in a storm." I sat down, not sure how to begin. "Did she really leave me an apartment?" He nodded, opening the folder in front of him. "Fully paid for. The documentation is in your name. It's small, but very well located. It's already furnished, in fact." I swallowed hard. "Why?" I whispered. He looked into my eyes. "Because you changed her life." Silence. I didn't know what to say. I had spent years being treated as invisible. And there was a stranger telling me I had been a lighthouse in someone's life. There's also a sum in the bank. It's not a lot, but enough for a life with dignity and autonomy. I signed the papers with a steady hand. I didn't tremble, because in that moment, I was no longer a shadow. I was someone with ground to stand on, with a choice. I left there with the apartment keys in my hand and a new folder with the documents. The sun was already beginning to warm the asphalt. I looked up at the sky and smiled. It wasn't a smile of euphoria. It was a silent smile of someone who knows a secret. On the way back, I asked the driver to stop a block before the house. I wanted to walk, to feel the wind, to hear my own footsteps. They still made a sound. I got home and found Sarah in the kitchen. She looked at me as if calculating a reaction time. "You left early today." I nodded, carefully putting the folder in my purse. "I went to take care of some personal business." She didn't ask what. Perhaps out of disinterest, perhaps out of fear. I made my tea. I sat at the table with my notebook on my lap. From then on, I began to organize everything. I made lists, dates, addresses. I checked what I would take, what I would leave, all calmly, without outbursts. It was like putting together a puzzle. Each piece needed to fit at the right time. At night, Michael came home tired from work. Sarah approached him to tell him that his mother had gone out without saying where. He didn't comment. He didn't ask me. As always, he remained silent, a silence that no longer reached me, because inside me, another sound was growing, a sound I hadn't heard in years, the sound of decision. I spent the next few days as usual, packing lunches, doing laundry, but something in me had already changed. I was like a ship already free from its anchor. just waiting for the right tide. At night, I read Claire's letter again. Every word was a reminder. I was not disposable. I was not too old, nor useless. I was a root, and I was ready to grow again, in different soil. One late afternoon, I went to the apartment building. I went up to the indicated floor. The superintendent opened the door. It was simple. A small living room, a two-seater sofa, a bookshelf with books. In the kitchen, new utensils. In the bedroom, a made bed, floral sheets, and a large window overlooking a small, leafy park. There, I breathed. For the first time in years, I took a deep breath, and I knew that place was mine. Not because it was given to me, but because it was made for me. I returned home calmly, and I put the key in an envelope, in the bottom drawer of the dresser. I already knew what I would do with it. I just had to wait for the right moment, because when that day came, they would see. And there would be no warning, just one door opening and another one closing. In their eyes, I was the same. I kept making coffee, sorting uniforms, heating up soup when one of the grandkids coughed. But inside, every gesture was a farewell. Every cup washed, every towel folded, every pair of pajamas put away. Everything was done for the last time. Sarah continued to ignore me with elegance. And Michael, well, Michael hid in his routine as always. He hadn't looked me in the eye for weeks. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't say goodnight. But I no longer expected it. I was too busy, rebuilding my silence. I started going out more often. "Where are you going, Mom?" he asked one Saturday morning. "For a little walk, to get some air." He nodded without looking up from his phone. In reality, he didn't even want to know. He was just surprised that I still had the strength to go out. And I did go out. I walked around my future home. I watched the trees in the park, the elderly playing cards, the children running in the late afternoon. Every scene was a reminder that there was life outside that house, which now felt more like a comfortable cell. I started to put away small things. My antique brooch, the pearl earrings I got for my 40th birthday, a book scribbled in by Olivia, all in silence, nothing flashy, because the farewell I planned would not come with drama. It would come with dignity. One evening, Sarah commented, "You seem more cheerful these days." I smiled. Maybe I've rediscovered what it means to live. She was taken aback. Michael pretended not to hear. The atmosphere was different. They felt it. They didn't know what, but they knew. Because my presence, once so eager to please, was now neutral, serene. I didn't argue. I didn't confront. I just observed. The following week, I made an appointment with the principal of the old school where I taught. I wanted to donate some books. When I got there, I was greeted with hugs. "Mrs. Eleanor, I thought you had disappeared. I was just hiding for a bit, but now I'm reappearing." I returned home with a light heart. They didn't know it, but that was my final rehearsal. The world outside their house still remembered me, and I, little by little, was remembering myself too. That night, while Sarah was washing dishes, she commented casually, "Have you thought about the residential facility? We can schedule a visit." "That won't be necessary," I replied, in a calm voice. She stopped scrubbing the plate, looked at me from the corner of her eye. "Oh, so you've decided to look for something closer?" "I've decided that my place is not where I am tolerated." She didn't answer, and for the first time, I noticed something on her face I had never seen before: discomfort. Deep down, she knew. She knew I didn't belong in that corner of the house, but she also knew that without me, something there would lose its axis. The next day, Michael arrived looking tired. He threw his backpack on the sofa. "Mom, are you okay?" I looked at him, the first time he had asked me that in months. "Yes, my son, better than I have been in a long time." He seemed relieved, but restless. He sensed it. They were starting to miss me, even before they lost me. And me? I watched everything with the patience of someone sewing a new dress with a steady thread. I knew the day was coming. I knew the suitcase I left by the closet would soon be the last to leave. I knew the key inside the envelope was waiting for me. Only one sound was missing. A sound that would change everything. The horn. It would come. And when it did, they would understand. But by then, it would be too late. The morning it all happened, the sky was clear, a deep, cloudless blue. I opened the window and felt the wind touch my face lightly. It was as if the world itself was silently telling me, today is the day. I got up slowly. I showered calmly. I chose my favorite dress, that white linen one I had always saved for an occasion that never came. Today was that occasion. I made my tea. I cut 2 slices of bread. I set the table, as I did every day. But something in the silence of the house was different. The children were still asleep. Sarah came down first. She stopped when she saw me ready, with makeup on, my hair up. "Are you going out?" she asked, not hiding her surprise. "I am. Do you need anything?" "No." Michael appeared shortly after. He had dark circles under his eyes. He had slept poorly. "Is everything okay, Mom?" I nodded. "Everything's in order." They looked at each other, as if they sensed something was slipping from their grasp, but they said nothing. I finished my tea. I took the cup to the sink. I went back to the living room and approached the bookshelf. I took a thick envelope from the drawer. "Michael, there's something I want to give you." He took the envelope, confused. He opened it. Inside, the papers. Inheritance contract. Deed to the new apartment. Bank statement. He read in silence. Sarah came up behind him, trying to peek. "What is this?" he asked, still not understanding. "It's freedom." "I don't understand." "An apartment?" "Mine. An inheritance I received." "It's already in my name." "Furnished." Silence. "I didn't need to stay here," I continued. "I chose to help. I chose to love. I chose to care. But—" Sarah tried to say something, but I interrupted her. "You offered me a brochure for a nursing home. I'm returning the kindness with a key." I took the set of keys from my purse. I held them out to Michael. "This is the key to my new home." He didn't move. He just stood there, as if the words made no sense. You're leaving?" "I am." Sarah tried to smile. One of those defensive smiles. "But what about the children? They'll miss me, but they'll survive. Just like I survived when I ceased to exist in this house." Michael finally spoke, his voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell us before?" "Because I wasn't asking for permission. I was giving notice." I walked to the stairs. I went up with a firm step. In my room, my suitcase was already packed. I came down with it, dragging it gently on the wooden stairs. The children had woken up. Olivia was looking at me from the hallway door with a frightened look. "Grandma, are you leaving?" I knelt. I held her small hands. "Grandma is going to live somewhere else now. But you'll come back, right?" "Maybe. If you want to visit me one day, I'll be waiting. With chocolate cake and stories." She cried softly. I kissed her forehead. I hugged little Leo. And then I heard the horn. Outside. Punctual. Short. Twice. I stood up calmly. I went to the door. I opened it. And there he was. Henry. The same smile from when we met in college. The same gaze that had always seen me whole. He got out of the car with elegance. He came towards me. "Are you ready?" I nodded. Michael appeared at the door. "Who is he?" "An old friend. Someone who remembers who I am." Sarah was pale. Henry took my suitcase lightly. He opened the car door. Before getting in, I looked one last time at the house. The living room where I had washed the floor 1,000 times. The kitchen where I had prepared meals that were never praised. The room where I had silenced so many tears. None of it belonged to me. It never had. I got in the car. Henry closed the door carefully. Michael was still standing there. "Mom." I turned my face away. "Not now, Michael." He looked down. There was nothing more to say. Henry started the car, and we left. The gate was left behind. The house, too. But for the first time in years, I took with me something that never fit inside there. My dignity. And it was too big to fit in that place. If this scene stirred something inside you, like the video and comment here, I've felt that way too. You are not alone, and when we recognize ourselves in each other's pain, the healing begins. Let's turn silence into strength, together. The car moved in silence for the first few minutes. Henry, with his usual calm, just drove. The sound of the city was beginning to awaken around us, but inside, all was silence and peace. A strange, new peace. I felt it in my chest, mixed with a knot that was hard to name. When I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw the house getting smaller, the gate already closed, Michael standing, motionless, Sarah inside, not even saying goodbye, the children behind the hallway curtain. My heart ached, but I didn't back down. Henry respected my time. He asked nothing. He just reached out his hand with a gentle gesture and touched mine. It was a light touch. No demands. No rush. "It's okay, Elle," he said. "You did what you had to do." I nodded. I still didn't fully trust my voice. Arriving at the new apartment, Henry parked in front of the building. The superintendent, already informed, opened the main door with a friendly smile. "Welcome, Mrs. Eleanor." We went up. Henry carried the suitcase, not letting me touch it. The apartment door opened. Inside, everything still smelled new, of a beginning. I entered as one steps on sacred ground. The first thing I did was open the windows. The morning air flooded the room gently. The curtain billowed, and for the first time in a long time, I took a deep breath. "Do you want me to stay for a bit, or would you rather rest?" Henry asked kindly. "Stay a while, please." He nodded. We made coffee. I ate slowly. The table was small, but there was space, a space that was all mine. We talked about trivial things, the weather, the neighbors, the little park. But inside, I knew, everything had changed. That same evening, the first text from Michael arrived. "Did you get there okay?" I replied hours later. "Yes." Not a word more. The next day, another text. "Mom, the kids asked about you." I smiled. "Tell them Grandma is fine, and that she loves them very much." There was no reply. 2 days later, Sarah wrote, "When do you plan on coming back for the rest of your things?" "I don't plan on coming back. You can donate or keep whatever you want." The reply was curt. Understood. Silence. That was it. They were used to my presence, but had never valued it. Now, in my absence, they felt the weight of the empty space. I learned from an old neighbor I ran into at the market that the house was more tense. Michael was coming home from work earlier. Sarah was quieter. Olivia cried at night. It pained me to know this, but I didn't blame myself. I had tried. For years, I had tried. One morning, Henry showed up with flowers, a bouquet of sunflowers. "To brighten up this new home even more," he said. I hugged him. For a long time, in silence, and he understood. Days later, another text from Michael. "Mom, Olivia wants to call you. Can we?" "Of course." That evening, the phone rang. "Grandma?" My granddaughter's little voice broke me down. "I miss you. I miss you too, my love." "Are you coming back?" I swallowed hard. "No, but I'll be here, always. You can call me whenever you want." "Okay." I drew a picture of you in the garden, with a flower in your hair. I smiled. I closed my eyes. "I want to see that drawing one day, you hear?" "Okay. I love you. I love you too." The call ended. I didn't cry. Not that time. I knew this was a new beginning, a different kind of bond, more true, more free. From then on, Michael's texts became more sporadic. He didn't know how to deal with me now, not as that silent figure who washed the dishes, but as a woman, independent, free. I didn't demand anything, nor did I expect anything anymore. My life began to fill with other colors. I made friends with the neighbors. I discovered a farmer's market near the park. I resumed reading my favorite books. I started a craft class at the public library. And Henry? He was by my side every day. He didn't invade. He didn't impose. He was just there. And that was more than enough. On one of those Sunday afternoons, we sat on the balcony. The sky was orange. "You seem like a different person," he commented. "Maybe I am. Or maybe I've just gone back to being who I once was." He smiled. "I hope you'll stay this time." I stayed, and I stayed whole. A few months went by. At Christmas, Michael sent flowers. A card with 3 words. "Merry Christmas, Mom." I hugged the bouquet fondly. I put it on the table, but I didn't reply. Sarah did not reach out. The children, with help from school, sent me cards with drawings. Those I kept. In the most beautiful box in the apartment. They didn't lose me out of pride. They lost me out of carelessness, and by the time they realized it, it was too late. Today, the new house is alive, not with noise, but with presence, with peace, with the smell of cinnamon cake and fresh coffee. Henry sometimes stays the night, other times just for the late afternoon. No obligations, no demands. Just two adults who understood, each in their own way, that love does not require eternal sacrifice. It respects, it listens, it embraces, and above all, it liberates. The last time I spoke with Michael, he asked me, "Are you happy now?" I answered calmly, "I'm free." He was silent. And then, he whispered, "I'm sorry. I accept, but I'm not coming back." Why? Because to forgive, I don't need to return to the same pain. I just need to move on without carrying its weight. Silence again. And after that, nothing more was said. I forgave him, but I kept my distance, because now, my heart has fences, and only those who understand that inside lives a whole woman may enter. For a long time, I confused love with a lack of boundaries. I thought loving meant keeping quiet, molding myself, erasing myself. I believed that if I gave myself completely, at some point the world would give back in the form of recognition, or at least gratitude. But the truth is that those who get used to receiving without giving never learn to be grateful. And I was the one who taught them that, unintentionally, every time I smiled after a rude comment, every time I said, "It's okay," when it wasn't, every time I washed dishes I hadn't dirtied and held on to resentments that didn't belong to me. I came to believe that my worth came from how much I served, and the more I served, the less I was seen. I didn't see when I stopped being the strong woman raising her son alone, to become the discreet presence that crept around the corners of the house. The truth is, I disappeared little by little, as if someone had been dimming the light inside me day by day, until only a shadow remained. But one day, even the shadow gets tired. Even the shadow longs for the sun. It was on that day, at that exact moment when I heard from my own son's mouth the phrase, "Either get a job or go to a nursing home," that everything became clear. It wasn't just ingratitude speaking. It was a reflection of what I myself had allowed. Because yes, I allowed myself to be erased, and that was the most painful thing to realize. But you know, pain also teaches, and what it taught me was simple, direct, almost brutal. If I didn't see myself, no one else would. If I didn't respect myself, no one else would. If I didn't love myself, I would keep expecting love from a place where there was only convenience. Today, I look in the mirror and I see a different woman. No longer the one who sat waiting for approval, but the one who stood up and left without making a scene, without raising her voice, without apologizing. And it was like that, in silence, that I found my voice again. Today, my routine is simple. I wake up when the sun touches the bedroom curtain. I get up slowly, put water on to boil, and make my coffee calmly. No rush, no obligation. My balcony has become my favorite place in the house. From there, I see the park, the children running, the elderly walking arm in arm, and the world moving on, without me needing to run after it. Time, which once seemed like a constant enemy, is now my ally. And for the first time, it runs at my pace. Michael's texts have become rarer and rarer. They are cordial, to the point. "Mom, I hope you're well. The kids send their love." I reply kindly, always, but never with longing. The longing I felt has turned into self-respect, not out of pride, but out of understanding. I understood that it's not my role to try to fix what others don't want to see. Olivia and Leo still call every now and then. She tells me about school, shows me her drawings. He talks about his swimming lessons. They are brief, sweet calls. They are enough to keep the flame I carry for them alive, a love without weight, without guilt. Sarah never wrote again, and that's fine. She always preferred silence anyway. Today, my home smells of baking cake, has plants on the windowsills, and books scattered around the living room. Henry comes by almost every day. He brings flowers, newspapers, new stories. Sometimes he just sits with me in silence, each with our cup of tea. And that silence, that one is good, because it's light. It's complicit. It demands nothing. It's different from that icy silence of the house where I lived for years. Here, the silence welcomes me. It doesn't crush me. Sometimes I think about everything I left behind, but not with sadness. I think with wisdom. Every tear, every slight, every time they called me a burden was, in fact, a push for me to find who I was again. And who I was right here all along. I just needed space to breathe. Today, I have that space, and in it, I flourish. For many years, I thought that being a mother was the same as being eternal. I thought my role was to give without measure, to wait without demanding, to love even without return. But one day, reality woke me up with a cold sentence. Either get a job or go to a nursing home. There, I realized that love, when it is not seen, becomes a weight, and that even the strongest heart gets tired of beating for those who do not listen. If you have ever felt forgotten, devalued, pushed into a corner as if your story didn't matter, know this: you are not alone. And more than that, you can start over. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter how long you've been putting yourself second. Starting over is possible, but don't wait for applause or invitations. Freedom comes when we decide we deserve more. More respect, more good silence, more real presence, more love that doesn't demand sacrifice as payment. And when that decision comes, everything changes. The house might stay the same, the people too, but you are no longer the one who stoops to fit in. You stand up, you walk away, you learn to see yourself with the eyes that others refuse to use. And that's where respect begins, in the instant you choose yourself. If this story has touched your heart, if you too have been treated like a burden, if someone has made you believe you were worth less because you had already lived too much, write here in the comments, "I am not a burden, I am living history." Share this video with a woman you love, one who needs to remember that age does not diminish anyone's value. On the contrary, it only reveals who was always strong, even in silence.